Hey everybody, welcome back to TechOdyssey. So today I'm here with my 1 month review of the Unihertz Titan Pocket. Now, a month has gone by really fast. It's actually, I think, a little bit over a month, but I don't want to say like 5.5 week review. It's a really good phone. If you're a BlackBerry fan, if you like the Unihertz Titan, you're probably going to like this phone. If you don't like small physical keyboard phones, you're probably not going to like this phone. And that's okay. The phone is not designed for you. But at $299 and all the stuff that they throw in here, MediaTek Helio P70, 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, dual SIM, NFC so you can do your wireless contact payments. It's got the smart key on the side, facial recognition, fingerprint sensor, all the good things, and this touch capacitive keyboard so you can use it like an extension of the screen. I think Unihertz is onto something here. I think they've done a good job with this phone, and we're going to talk about it, good, bad, or indifferent, all the things that I've experienced as I've been using this phone. But before we get into that, I do want to say if this is your first time stopping by the channel, thank you for being here. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. Now let's talk about the Unihertz Titan Pocket. So some of you are probably familiar with the big brother of this phone, the Unihertz Titan. And when it came out, very good phone. There's a lot of positive things I had to say about it, and it wasn't really for me, but I know a lot of people really like it. It looks kind of like the Passport, except it went to the gym for a couple of years and it ended up like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. This one right here, it's like Mark Wahlberg. So you've got The Rock and then you've got Mark Wahlberg, and he's beefed up, he works out all the time too, but he brings a different skill set to the table, and bam, this is what you get right here, the Unihertz Titan Pocket. And like I alluded to in the beginning, good specs for what you get here. You got a 3.1-inch LCD screen. It's got 720p resolution, but people are like, don't worry about that. The screen is so small, you can't tell the difference. It's imperceptible. It looks like a 1080p screen. Android 11, very stock version of this. It doesn't have a whole lot of stuff on here. You've got the physical keyboard, you've got the home button, the back button. You can use the capacitive swipe gestures so you can do all the great stuff. Swipe up, get to the menu, swipe down. All the things that we used to love in BlackBerry 10 that have made their way over to Android, because Android and Apple have basically copied BlackBerry 10 at this point. But there are a lot of good things going on here. It is a really enjoyable phone to use. It's great for making phone calls. It's got Bluetooth. You can connect your wireless earbuds. It's even got a headphone jack on top, and it's got an IR blaster, so you can blast IR at the TV, change your channels, whatever you have that supports it, you can set it up and use it on here. 16 megapixel camera on the back, 8 megapixel on the front. They will take pictures. They don't take the best pictures in the world. If you've got adequate lighting, it's okay. That is not the strong suit of this phone. 4,000 milliamp battery, that is a ton of battery in this little phone. It'll get you all the way through the day. I haven't had any issues with the battery. Now, it does have 128 gigs of storage. It has expandable SD card storage, which is also nice. 6 gigs of RAM, and I think that that's perfectly fine. With what you're using on this phone, 6 gigs of RAM I think is perfectly fine, and then you've got the MediaTek Helio P70 processor. Yes, it is a little bit older processor, but the thing is when you're running a nice stock version of Android 11, basically, on this small phone, 720p resolution, no enhanced refresh rate, no crazy stuff, you don't really tell the difference. I mean, it feels like you're running a flagship processor because everything that you do on this phone is at a much smaller scale. It's got plenty of power. Like, you're not going to notice any differences. I've not had one problem, one iota of indifference when it comes to the processor. It doesn't bother me at all. I think it's fine. So people out there saying, oh, it's dated, oh, it's an old processor. One, they haven't used the phone, and two, they don't know what they're talking about. It's perfectly fine. And you're not going to be doing a lot of high-end gaming on this anyway. I mean, you can play PUBG, I guess, if you want to play it on a small screen, a small square screen. You can play Call of Duty Mobile on here on a small square screen. I don't really recommend playing games on this phone. I don't particularly do it. There are some that you can play, and that's neat, but really and truly, it's supposed to be a Android communication device. It's got a nice keyboard on it. Of course, it has a different keyboard layout than the BlackBerry because they don't want to get sued because they can't copy them. So some of the buttons are in different places, but it still has the normal keyboard layout for the QWERTY. All the letters are in the traditional spot. You got the space bar. And I like that the space bar is not also the fingerprint sensor. And hear me out on this one. there have been so many problems with the fingerprint sensors built into the space bars on the BlackBerries. So then if your keyboard space bar goes out, then you're kind of screwed, because then your fingerprint sensor doesn't work. Or if your fingerprint sensor stops working, well, that kind of stinks. So here on this one, it's right here. Now, I do wish, you can see the bezel here. It's got a very large bezel. I really think that they could have put a little bit better screen in here to where it took advantage of the space and had less of a bezel area on here. That would have been nice. I feel like this phone does need a little bit larger screen on it. I think that a 3.5 would have served it a lot better. But what you get here, I'm sure that this is probably what was laying around somewhere, and they were able to do this for the crowdfunding. They're not having a bunch of stuff manufactured for this phone. That's just not how it works, at least not to my knowledge. So 3.1 inch screen, it's adequate. The only time that it really irks me is when I'm doing social media stuff like Twitter and Instagram. Instagram is particularly terrible on here. I'll fire it up. You can barely even see one picture on here. Like, this is, if you like to use social media and you like to use Instagram, like, this is not for you. I mean, you can swipe down with 2 fingers and you can get mini mode, which will allow you to, but then it's like, it's really, really small at that point. So they've got that mini mode where you can adjust it very easy. You just swipe 2 fingers again and it changes it and it turns it back into normal mode. But yeah, you can't even see one picture. And then I'll fire up Twitter here. With Twitter, there's not a whole lot going on here. If there's a picture, you're not going to be able to see all of it. So whenever it comes to social media, it's good from a typing perspective. Like, it's enjoyable to be able to reply and type on there. But as far as enjoying the content on the screen, it's one of those things where it's kind of one of the cons with this phone. Now, the phone itself is quite bulky. Now, it is like 30% slimmer, I think, and smaller in form factor than the Titan. 30-40%, I can't remember the number. I do like what they did here. It is an improvement over the Titan. It is still, like, this material on the back is actually kind of slippery. Now, it is a very, very solid built phone, and you're not going to find cases for it because it basically has a hardened metal and plastic case wrapped around the phone. So I do like that, but I particularly like something a little bit more sleek and a little bit more like the BlackBerry. Like, I've got my BlackBerry Key 2 right here, and let me take the case off of it. I very much like this kind of model. I would have liked just something a little bit thinner, a little bit sexier in the phone department instead of more like industrial-like. And I get it. They're trying to go for a different angle. That's fine. This is their own identity. I don't want to ding them for that. It's just not my cup of tea. It's not my personal favorite flavor. But it works. And then you've got the magic key over here on the side. I like to call it a convenience key. What you can do here is you can program this for a short press, a long press, or a double press, or you can even set it up to where you can do the speed key like you could do with the BlackBerry Key 2. So when you're inside an app, you can have one of the buttons set up where you can use it and still use your shortcut keys inside the app. Now, when it comes to shortcut keys, this is pretty much the best you're going to get in the market right now, other than a 3-year-old BlackBerry. You can set it up like if you're on the home menu here, I've got T. I press T, it pulls up Twitter for me. If I hit C, we'll go back, it pulls up my clock. You know, you can program it for different things. Or let's see, I'll go ahead and I'll long press C. Ta-da! And it pulls up Chrome for me. So you can program each one of these letters on here for a short press and a long press. I like it a lot. So a lot of advantages here. Great for multitasking. And that's really what you're paying for. You're paying $299 so you can get kind of the BlackBerry type of device. Great for communication. Great for people who like that tactile physical keyboard experience. And the keyboard on here I think is really good. It's broken in pretty well. It's not broken in as well as like a BlackBerry keyboard. I mean, these guys definitely are not as seasoned in that department. But for a company that's not a BlackBerry, coming in and making a physical keyboard phone, I think they've done a pretty good job. They've got the capacitive stuff down really well. And even here, you like go into Twitter, you can use it there and you can swipe up and down. It's just like an extension of the screen. This phone is really nice and refreshing to use in one-handed mode. You can do pretty much anything with one hand other than type. Like, typing is kind of the limit there. I mean, you can kind of hand peck with your thumb, but it's really not very efficient at all. You can use voice to text though, so if you don't mind sitting there talking to your phone, hey, you can use voice to text. You can do that to type. You can use this with one hand. You can answer phone calls. It's good for phone calls. It's got a decent speaker on it for speakerphone and for listening to music. And overall, I've really enjoyed using it. It's very refreshing. I enjoyed having my SIM card in it and carrying it around and using it as a daily driver. I've tested this phone out thoroughly. So battery, it'll get you through the day. I didn't have any problems with that. Multitasking, power, and performance, no problems there. 6 gigs of RAM paired with the P70 in this small form factor, very good. It's only got a 720p resolution on the screen. That means it's not having to work really hard. There's no enhanced refresh rate. It's no 120. It's 60 hertz. So it's not having to work really hard. It's got a smaller resolution that looks as good as 1080p. So I think you get the best of both worlds there. You get good balance for power, but when you load apps and you run stuff, it's perfectly fine for productivity and performance as well. And then typing on it is a very enjoyable experience. If you aren't using a physical keyboard right now, it's going to be much easier for you to learn the layout. If you've got a BlackBerry right now, it's going to give you fits for about a week until you learn the layout on this keyboard. And then for your own sake, don't swap back and forth between keyboards, because trying to go back and forth between this keyboard and this keyboard is utterly maddening. It was dry. Like I was like questioning my own existence, trying to figure out where the letters were when I went from one keyboard to the other. It is a torture of your mind like most people have probably never experienced. So don't do it. Anyway, screen I think is good. I wish it were like an AMOLED. I wish it were a higher quality LCD. They could have done better there, but we're talking about a $299 Kickstarter phone. So there's only so much I can ask for in that department. You do have the classic LED indicator on here, so I do like that they have that. The build quality is great. It does take a little while to get used to though. It is a little on the hefty side. It's kind of dense. The biggest point of contention that I have with this phone is this area down here. Because when you're holding the phone and typing, it kind of digs into your finger a little bit. So after like the second day, I was like, this is kind of uncomfortable. And then after a couple of days later, you get used to it. You get used to the balance, the feel, the weight, where it's resting at on your hand. And then you don't really worry about it anymore. I didn't have problems after a couple of days. But USB-C charging on the bottom, it recharges the phone fast enough. The 4,000 milliamp battery is perfectly adequate. And I'm trying to think what else. The only other concern that I have with this phone is the network bands. It doesn't have band 71 for the LTE, for the extended network. It doesn't have 5G. And then the biggest concern I have is that it might not work with AT&T. See, this is not an official phone supported by AT&T. I doubt that Unihertz is paying to get it certified to work on their network, which is something that AT&T requires, meaning you may have issues with it. There are a lot of phones getting kicked off the AT&T network right now, and a lot of people using BlackBerries who are getting text messages and emails saying, hey, your phone's not going to work with this anymore. And even for newer phones like the BlackBerry Key 2, it's not because it doesn't support VoLTE or Voice over LTE. It's because AT&T doesn't support that phone. So it'll still work. T-Mobile, Metro by T-Mobile, Mint Mobile. You're not going to have any problems there, but using it with AT&T, it may be a problem. And I'm concerned about that. So it's frustrating because I know people with AT&T are looking for something to move over to, and they're excited about this phone, and you may not be able to use it. So that's the only area of caution that I have there. Also not 5G. I don't really expect it from a Kickstarter phone at $300, but we're another year. Any phone that comes out on the market really should have 5G. Like this is like one of the last swan song phones that is kind of okay it doesn't have it, and that's just because it's a niche device from a Kickstarter project. So yes, that does concern me for areas where we've extended the 5G coverage and the extended 4G LTE with the band 71 over the last year or two. You're not going to get that in here. It's just it doesn't support that frequency. But I haven't had any problems in my area. No problems with the network. 4G LTE works perfectly fine. So that's just a question mark I have looming out there. And I don't have warm fuzzies about whether it's going to work with AT&T once they shut off the 2G, 3G network and rely solely on voice over LTE. I think this one's going to be left out in the wind. I think the Titan will as well. So that's an issue. But overall, I think it's a good phone. I think that Unihertz has done a good job putting this together. Yeah, it's not as refined and as polished as this guy right here, but BlackBerry and TCL have had decades of experience working on making phones with physical keyboards. This is the second one that Unihertz has made, and I think this is a definite improvement over the Titan. I can't wait to see what they make in the future. I'd really like to see like a slimmed down, more BlackBerry-esque, like normal casual phone as opposed to these rugged, big, heavy phones. Maybe we'll get that one day, but with what we have right here, I think that it's very capable. It has everything you could ask for a daily driver phone. If you like a small footprint phone with a physical keyboard, Android 11 runs like a charm. Like I haven't really had any problems with it at all that I can think of. So overall, $299, definitely worth it. It's going to make a lot of people very happy. I hope you were able to get it on the Kickstarter and get it cheaper than the retail price, but if not, whenever it starts selling in September, $299 I think is a very reasonable price. So that's all I've got on my 1-month review of the Unihertz Titan Pocket. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down in the comments section. I will get back with you. If you enjoy the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.